الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد. Today, dear students and dear colleagues, we have today Unit 11 Lesson 3 for the first stage of secondary schools. So before I start, we have to identify our objective, which is, let's write this objective here. Today, our objective is how to make a complaint and how to respond. So our lesson today mainly discusses how to complain about something and how to respond and answer these questions or answer this complaint. يبقى درس النهارده عبارة عن ازاي انا ممكن اعبر عن استيائي او غضبي ان انا هقدم شكوى معينة وازاي انا ممكن ابدأ ارد عليها. So today before we start, let's start. We have to work in pairs to discuss why you would make complaints. Why you would somebody makes complaint. For example, why would you make a complaint to your neighbor? And why would you make a complaint in a shop? And why would you make a complaint in a hotel or a restaurant? For example, for me, I think I would make a complaint if my neighbor is turning the TV on very loudly, and maybe because he's just putting some rubbish in front of my house, and also maybe I complain because he's always doing something which I don't like. يبقى احنا بنشتكي لو احنا مش حابين شيء معين سواء في الجار أو غيره. Number two, why would we complain in a shop? I think we can say that you can complain in a shop if you find that the behavior of the customer service or the salesperson is not suitable. You can just tell the manager that this person or this guy is not quite, polite enough. So you can complain. You also can complain if you have just found something wrong in your product or the thing that you have just bought, right? Also, we can complain in a hotel or a restaurant if the service is not good enough and if you haven't found the thing that you want in a meal or even in a recipe that you like to eat. So you can have a lot of circumstances and a lot of occasions and situations where you can make a complaint. يبقى احنا ممكن نشتكي او نقدم شكوى في اكتر من موقف. ممكن نشتكي من جار لو هو مثلا معاه صوت التلفزيون او بيعمل مثلا شيء مش كويس، زي ان هو مثلا يضع الليترز او القمامة او قدام المنزل. ممكن نشتكي من الشوب اسيستنت او الشوب كيبرز لو هو بيعاملني مش كويس او في شيء انا ما لقيتوش بشكل كويس. ممكن كمان اشتكي بالنسبة للهوتيل او الفندق لو السيرفيس مش كويس. So today we learn about how to complain and how to respond if somebody is complaining against me. Now let's start. Listening. We have here 3 conversations. We will listen to 3 conversations, and after we listen, we have to answer these questions. We have, as you can see, conversation 1, 2, and 3. After we listen, we have to answer 4 main questions. The first one is, where is the conversation happening? Number 2, who is making a complaint? Number 3, why is he or she making a complaint? And finally, what is the other speaker's response to the complaint? Now, you will have some time to listen to the audio and the conversation, and after that we can do this conversation together. Okay? So, listen to the 3 conversations where one person is making a complaint and the other one is responding to that complaint. Write the answers to the questions in the table. Now listen carefully, and after that we can do this table together. Now let's start. Student's Book, page 56, Unit 11, Lesson 3, Listening. Listen to three conversations where one person is making a complaint and the other person is responding to that complaint. Write the answers to the questions in the table. 1. Excuse me, I'd like to make a complaint. My soup is cold. I do apologize. I'll make sure you get another soup which is hot. 2. So, before we go ahead to number 2, so somebody is complaining, as you can see, in a restaurant, right? Yes. So who is making this complaint? Who do you think is making this complaint? Yes, I think you know this answer. So the one who is making the complaint is a customer, right? So we can see that he is a customer, somebody who is eating in a restaurant. And why is he or she making this complaint? Did you listen? Yes, because the soup is cold. Because the soup is cold, it's not hot enough. Okay. And what is the other speaker's response to the complaint? Do you remember? Yes, he said he or she will bring another soup. She will bring another hot soup. So this is the answer for the first question or the first conversation. So as you can have just seen, we have to identify the place, who is making this complaint, and why is he or she making this complaint, and finally, what is the solution? What is the response of the other person? Now let's go ahead to conversation number 2. Listen carefully and then try to answer the questions. Now let's go ahead. I'm sorry to bother you, but the music is really loud. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure my son turns the music down. 3. So here we go. We have just finished number 2. So what was the complaint? Do you remember? Yes, it was about music. So where is the conversation happening? Yeah, maybe it happens at someone's house. At someone's house, right? So who is making a complaint? Who is the person who is making a complaint? Maybe this person is our neighbor, right? Maybe a neighbor is just complaining because the TV is loud. And why is he or she making complaint? Yes, you have just said it. The TV or the music is loud. And what is the solution? What is the response for the other speaker? He said that he or she will turn it down. She will turn the music down. She will make the music quieter. Okay, now let's go ahead to number 3, conversation number 3. Now let's listen carefully to number 3. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure my son turns the music down. Now let's start. 3. I'd like to speak to the manager, please. I'm afraid she's out at the moment. Can I help you? Yes, the problem is that my train is now 2 hours late. How am I going to get home this evening? I'm sorry about that. Perhaps we can book a taxi for you? Now we have just finished the conversation. So where is the conversation happening? Yes, it's happening at station. And who is making this complaint? It could be a passenger or even a traveler. And why is he or she complaining? Because as you have just heard, the train is late. The train is actually 2 hours late. And what is the response to the complaint? As you know, they offered or she offered to book a taxi. They offered the passenger to book him or her a taxi. Okay, so now we have just finished listening to these conversations. Now let's go ahead to number 2. He says, listen again and complete the sentences that you hear. Now you will listen again to the same conversation, but this time you will try to complete these gaps. You will fill in these gaps after you listen. Just be ready and make sure that you can have a kind of a pen or and paper or even your book and try to listen and write at the same time while listening. Okay? Now let's retry again. Let's re-listen and try to answer these questions. Now let's start. Students' Book, page 56. Unit 11, Lesson 3. Listening. Listen to 3 conversations where one person is making a complaint and the other person is responding to that complaint. Write the answers to the questions in the table. 1. Excuse me, I'd like to make a complaint. My soup is cold. I do apologize. I'll make sure you get another soup which is hot. 2. I'm sorry to bother you, but the music is really loud. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure my son turns the music down. 3. I'd like to speak to the manager, please. I'm afraid she's out at the moment. Can I help you? Yes, the problem is that my train is now 2 hours late. How am I going to get home this evening? I'm sorry about that. Perhaps we can book a taxi for you? Now I think you would like to listen again because I know I just can't go with typing very quickly as the recording is. So let's listen again. Students' Book, page 56. Unit 11, Lesson 3. Listening. Listen to 3 conversations where one person is making a complaint and the other person is responding to that complaint. Write the answers to the questions in the table. 1. Excuse me, I'd like to make a complaint. My soup is cold. I do apologize. I'll make sure you get another soup which is hot. This is number 1. Number 2. 2. I'm sorry to bother you, but the music is really loud. I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure my son turns the music down. So here, I'm sorry, as you can see about that. And here, tell you what, the music is really loud. So here also we missed the word you. I'm sorry to bother you. Now the last conversation. 3. I'd like to speak to the manager, please. I'm afraid she's out at the moment. Can I help you? Yes, the problem is that my train is now 2 hours late. How am I going to get home this evening? I'm sorry about that. Perhaps we can book a taxi for you? So he said, perhaps we can book a taxi for you. Okay. So excellent. Well done. Good job. Just try to make sure that you have just made everything correctly. Now let's move ahead to the speaking part of this lesson. Work in pairs and make conversations using the expressions for making complaints and polite responses in the table. Now we have just 2 examples. We have 2 students or a pair of students. We have 2 situations actually. Number 1, we have 2 students, A and B. So student A will say that you bought some shoes last week and one shoe already has a hole in it. You go back to the shop to make a complaint. And the response from student B, he will say, you work in a shoe shop. A customer makes a complaint. Be polite and decide how you will respond. So how can we make it? How can we role play this conversation? I think you know this very well. So it should be 2 students acting together. So the first one can say that like this one, excuse me, I'd like to complain, you know, or he would say, I'd like to complain, to make a complaint as this example. He can say, excuse me, I'd like to make a complaint because my shoes have holes or have a hole in it. So student B can answer saying, I do apologize, we can just change these pairs for you. يبقى الأول هيشتكي يقول والله أنا عندي مشكلة في الشوز بتاعي، والتاني أو الطالب التاني هيرد عليه يقول له ما عندكش مشكلة احنا ممكن نغيرها لك. زي كده زي بالظبط just like the first conversation, the soup. And he says I'd like to make a complaint because the soup was hot. And the response was I do apologize, we can just change this for you. Perhaps we can change this soup for you. Number 2, we have student A and student B. Your neighbors are doing some building work and making a lot of noise. Visit them to complain about a noise. يبقى جارك بيعمل بعض العمل في اللي هو البيلدينج بتاعه أو المبنى وأنت هتروح تشتكي بسبب الدوشة. So you are doing some building work and making a lot of noise. Your neighbor make a complaint. Remain calm and respond quietly. وطبعا مطلوب من student B إن هو يرد بأدب. So we can say, I think you get it. You can say, yes, I'm sorry to bother you, but you're really making loud noise in your building. Student B can say, yes, I do apologize. I'm sorry about that. I'll just finish as soon as possible. Okay, so this is how to make a complaint and how to respond. Now let's go to practice on page 116 workbook. I just have to stop to make sure that the connection of my electricity is quite well. So now let's continue. So let's start Unit 11, Lesson 3 workbook. Now listening. Number 1. Complete the following conversations with these sentences. Then listen and check your answers. I think we don't have to listen because, I think this is quite easy. We have some choices here. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 choices, and after that we have to complete these conversations. Now you have some time, maybe 1 minute, to think about these conversations and try to answer these questions. After 1 minute, I'll start. You have 1 minute. Now start. I think this is enough. Okay, now let's start. Now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 conversations, and we will choose from these responses. Okay, so in order not to waste time, I will just try to write the number above. Okay, let's start. Hannah is talking to an assistant. She is saying, "Excuse me, I'd like to make a complaint. My phone doesn't work." So the assistant will respond saying, I think you get the answer. Yes. Yeah. So he can say, "I do apologize. Perhaps we can repair it." So this would be number 1. Now number 2. Hani is talking to a man. He is saying, "I'm sorry to bother you, but you're very tall. I can't see the play." So the man would say, yes, he would say, "I'm sorry about that. I changed places with my wife. She's shorter." So this one would be number 2. Now number 3. It's between Heba and the waitress. Heba is starting, "I'd like to speak to the manager, please." The waitress would say, "Yes, I'm afraid he's out at the moment. Can I help you?" So this would be number 3. "Yes, the problem is that my meat is undercooked." "I'm sorry about that. We will give you a new meal." So that would be number 4. So undercooked means, do you know the meaning of undercooked? Undercooked means not cooked very well. It's not cooked very well. It needs more time to be cooked well. Okay. Now let's move to vocabulary. Here we have vocabulary. Complete the conversation using these words to make a complaint. We have afraid, which it means I'm sorry. Can, complaint, do, perhaps, sorry, and speak. You have 1 minute, okay, to think about the appropriate word for every gap or for every space. Now you have it. Start. Now let's continue. So the man is talking to the receptionist. So the man starts saying, "I'd like to speak to the manager, please." Receptionist will say, she's out at the moment. I'm what? Okay, let's complete the full conversation, maybe because we can say I'm sorry and I'm afraid is and so on. Let's complete. She's out at the moment. I help you? Yes, I'd like to make a I am about that. Yes, so what is the problem? The window in my hotel won't close and it is very noisy outside. I apologize. We can find you a different room. So I think it's quite easy now. Now let's start. I'd like to speak to the manager, please. Yes. I'm afraid. I'm afraid she's out at the moment. Yes. Can I help you? Can I help you? Yes, I'd like to make a complaint. I'd like to make a complaint. I am sorry about that. What is the problem? The window in my hotel won't close and it is very noisy outside. Yes, I do apologize. Perhaps we can find you a different room. Okay. Now let's move to number 3. Read the conversation again and answer these questions. Answer the questions. Number 1. Number 1 is, why did the man make a complaint? Do you know? I think it's quite easy because, yes. Can you see? Here. So the window in the hotel won't close and it is very noisy outside. Yes. So because it is noisy outside, and as you can see, and also the window won't close. Number 2, where does the conversation take place? Take place means happen. So I think it's quite easy. The place and the location is quite clear. This conversation is happening at, can you see? Yes, a hotel. So at a hotel. Finally, we have the writing task, which is, imagine you are in a cafe and you have a reason to make a complaint. Write a short dialogue between you and the waiter. So this is a kind of your homework. You can just make a dialogue like this. You try to complain in a cafe and the waiter will respond and answer these questions. Okay? And then we have just finished Unit 11, Lesson 3. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.